Okay. Good evening, Mr. Snow. Thank you for joining me on the Sami Parvez show. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing amazingly well. A little bit tired, but here we are.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize once again that I know like I have sent you a request early February, but unfortunately I don't know like how missed it. I don't do like that, but it happened like that was a human error. And again, like on this podcast, I must confess that I should have you earlier than at the end of the last week of election. My apologies, sir, once again.
Here's the deal. I will go on any podcast because the simple fact is mainstream media lies every single day, and the only truth and real conversations that go on out there is conversations just like this, where people get together and they talk about their passions, their issues, their lives. That's the only thing real anymore. Anything on TV is not real.
Thank you, sir. And so, can you please talk about Libertarian Party? What is it all about?
Well, the, the libertarians started uh, as a movement against the arrest of gay men and women in the 70s. Believe it or not, it was illegal right up until about 1988. And the premise was is that everybody's an individual and every individual has rights.
Mhm,
It has evolved into a political party that believes that we should have less government and more individual rights.
mhm,
We ran what you would call today LGBTQ candidates in every election since 1975. And, we were the first party to ever do that in that sense there. Whether you agree with it or not, it's an individual right to love who you want to love, and I don't care if you agree with it or disagree with it. It's irrelevant. It's
mhm,
people are people, and we all love whoever we love. I
mhm,
myself, I'm married, been married for 32 years to my wonderful wife, who's my savior. I have two children. I'm a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces of almost 30 years with multiple missions deployed overseas. And today I am a homesteader, growing as much as my own food as I can as a hedge against inflation and eating healthier.
mhm. Okay, and sir, thank you so much for your service in Army or Canadian Armed Forces. I appreciate it. We must always honor our men and women in uniform. And let's talk about your election campaign. So, why are you running in this election?
From the provincial party standpoint, we are running to reduce the amount of government and the influence it has over your life. That's the overall arching picture. There's too much government, there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much control over, private business, individual property, over our children, over our healthcare, over our ability to actually get ahead. Because every time you try to get ahead, they stomp it out. So the premise of who we are is to reduce the size and scope of government, and we have a very few good policies that will do exactly that. And hopefully, we can talk about them tonight.
Yep. Okay. So let's begin one topic which I'm highlighting. I'm bringing it up like it is not being talked at all with respect to any mainstream media. That is wage theft. I don't know. Like, have you heard wage theft? So you understand what I'm talking.
Oh
Wage theft.
yeah.
Okay. So my question is like I'm myself experienced it with Simplify Supply Chain Solution. That is a company here in Waterloo region. They do business. It means they did it multiple times. They've been caught like for wage theft. It means they fire employees without cause or with cause, and then they don't pay it. Even though Ministry of Labor aware about it. I spoke with an officer in the Ministry of Labor who said he knew like all the people, like he said who hired you, this person, that person. I don't recall those people name, but it means he mentioned all people name. And but the business is still running. And my the Ministry of Labor gave the decision in my favor. I should be paid, which is less than $1,000. And but till today, it has been last March. Now today is February 24th, so it is just now, you can say it has been a year, but nothing happened. I wrote to premier, I wrote to my local representative, I wrote to David Bikini, who was like, who is still Ministry of Labor. I mean, they did nothing, like, despite we have rules and regulation, our books are full of rules, and but they are not practically being enforced at the workplace. And it seems like we live in a third world country. If it happens anywhere in the other part of the world, we would say, yeah, this thing happens. But a country like Canada and Ontario, so but these things are happening. Like it seems like we are just moving toward a second world country or a third world country. So
We
what?
are. We have become that. It used to be a place to come and flourish. It's no longer that. It's a place to come and wither under excessive taxation. In
Mhm,
regards to your, if you want a judgment from the Ministry of Labor should be doing that. But the very first thing that you can do, it costs you no money. You go down to the small claims court and you file an application. And when you win your application, it's not very difficult to do. I've done it. When you win your application, they will put their judgment on the company's business. So if they don't pay their bills, then it affects their credit rating. So if you've got a judgment, if you go to court now with small claims court and you say the ministry has done this, they've done nothing to do it, judge, can you enforce this? And this way you have the judicial system behind you. And at the very least, if you get that judgment, you can sell that judgment to a collection agency.
wow, that's good. I may,
And
I
you
may.
you eventually get your money because either they try to sell the business or do something and their credit's ruined now because they owe you money. And
Mhm.
if they owe you money,
Yep. So it does not cost me at anything to going to like court.
for small claims court. So just take a look at it. It's like $65. It might have changed. It's been a couple of years since I did it. It
Mhm.
doesn't cost a lot of money to go to small claims court. If you do it yourself, if you hire a lawyer, obviously, and it's not that difficult of a process, especially if you got a letter from the ministry,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
This is a pretty now because the Ministry of Labor is one thing, but a court decision is another,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
it's sad that we have to do that, but unfortunately, I've had to use the court systems to my advantage when people wouldn't pay, and it's just something you have to do. You just it sucks, but there's where we are.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Wealth, or you say wealth theft or labor theft or wage theft.
Mhm.
Um, the biggest wage theft that we have in Canada is inflation. It is created by the provincial governments and it is helped by the federal government.
Mhm.
Every time something doubles in price, it costs us more, but the government collects double the revenue on
Mhm.
the service or the product. So it used to be at one time if they said, I want to raise your taxes because we need an extra $10 billion this year and we're going to raise your personal income tax by 1% to do it, well,
Mhm.
governments would fall. Now they don't even have to go to the people anymore. And that is the true criminality of what's happening. It is the raping and pillaging of our buying power through
Mhm.
inflationary policies and measures that both the provincial and federal government do.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Like it seems like it means now people, now the government is not by the people, for the people. It is for the bureaucrats or for the businesses or for themselves. What who I call tycoons. Like they are just playing games. As Doug Ford called a slap election just for sake of his own job. He is like it is going to cost $189 million, which
They,
could be
they don't
spent somewhere
care.
else. Yeah, because like like Doug Ford, when he was born, he like eat from the silver spoon. Like he does not care. Like our like from the federal part too. Like these people don't care. But then they made the system, like way that the similar party like your Libertarian Party or New Blue Party or Canada Choice Party, or if you name it, or independent candidate cannot win because they made the system. When it comes to our mainstream media, they always going towards four major parties. They are excluding you. I need to ask you: have you been interviewed by any major mainstream media outlets?
Oh yes, absolutely. Mainstream? No, no. Mainstream? No, no, no. This is all local news that's around here. I mean, it is the norm that we get interviewed by all the local radio stations. It is the absolute norm that we are ignored by all of the major news networks and news people. I'll give you the perfect example. Um, there was three debates in my riding, Leeds and
Yep.
Grenville.
Yep.
One held by the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, one by the Labor Council here in Kempville. The other one was in Toledo, Ontario, and then the third one, which was a televised debate. They said it was a televised debate. It was actually the local cable network that was hosting it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was held at the Brockville Arts Center.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's seven candidates running in this election, in this riding.
Yep.
And all seven candidates could go to the first two. But the televised debate, we were shut out. We were told, you're not welcome. You can't come. You can't participate. Only the Green, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Conservatives were invited.
Mm-hmm.
And so New Blue, myself, and the Ontario Party crashed the place and stood in the hallway and set up our tables because they couldn't stop us. It was a municipal building. And maybe 35 people showed up to the debate, and 11 of them stayed in the hallway because they were there to listen to us. This is how they are thwarting democracy,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of expression, and allowing the election process to be heard by all people, by all candidates. If you want to run an idiot, then put your idiot up there, let him make decisions, and let him or her use his voice and expose that person, whether their message is good or bad or left or right, it doesn't really matter. But if you don't give people a chance to hear all the debate, then it's an illegal election as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I know like this is a new norm, and that's why I'm like people like myself, like trying to get more candidates like you or other like independent candidate to give them a voice. Like you are always welcome. As I have ignored conservative, liberal, NDP, Green. I did not send any request because in the past they denied my request. I thought it would be waste of time and energy. Why should I send request to them? But I try to get more like independent and a similar party like yourself to air. I don't know, like maybe I have a small audience, but I'm doing my job, like to do whatever it is in my capacity. So you said you served in the military. So what
Yes.
rank did you serve?
I made it up to the rank of sergeant.
Oh,
I was a leader of men. I didn't want to go any higher than sergeant. I
mhm.
probably could have if I,
Sir, you went to battlegrounds too.
yes,
So did you serve in Afghanistan or Iraq somewhere?
no. But Bosnia, uh, uh, Serbia, Cyprus, the Golan Heights, Jordan, Israel.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
So how did you feel right now what's happening in Ontario and Canada as you served like you devoted your life, like over 30 years in military protecting Canada and Canadian. So how do you feel it?
that's a tough question because after Bosnia and after Afghanistan, I was retired from the military in 2005 for my injuries. That's my first retirement. They brought me back as a reservist, and medically I was injured again, and they put me out in 2011. Um, of my friends that I either watched die or died overseas, a place like Bosnia or Cyprus, we were actually able to see the efforts of us trying to bring peace and stability, and in some cases democracy and the functioning of basic government services back. Afghanistan was like that as well for the first bit
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit further into it. But honestly, I question myself now. Uh, don't get me wrong. I never will regret serving, and no soldier that's ever served will regret serving, because we think we do it for country at first, but in reality, you do it for the guys that are left and right of you, and the people you form close bonds with. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes about, getting through those things, and then um, uh, that kind of camaraderie that you get through. Um, it's not for do or die or country or anything else like that. But I really question in regards to Afghanistan, what did we accomplish and what did people die for? Now, as a libertarian, I don't believe in fighting any wars anymore. I realized that early on that wars that where government intervene or take over countries, or why are we sending our Canadian soldiers away or American soldiers away to die in other countries? For who? For what? For freedom and democracy? Yes, World War II, you can say that. But I don't think there's been a single war since that was about freedom and democracy. It's about control and territory grabs or resource grabs, which is basically the history of the British and the English for the whole last 300 years. It's moving into countries and taking over their governance
Mm-hmm.
and taking their resources. But more so lately, in the very high capacity killing ability of war, there's no reason to fight a war anymore unless someone brings the war to your doorstep. The only Canadian soldier's life worth losing is in defense of Canada from being attacked, or in aid to civil power during national disasters and emergencies where soldiers are called upon to do those kind of duties. And if they die doing that, then they truly die serving their country. And that's the legitimate war that I would support now, not anything outside of the borders of Canada.
Mm-hmm. But do you still like encourage your family members, your children,
No,
grandchildren
absolutely
to?
not. There's no more. The military that I served in, and for the most part right to the end of Afghanistan, doesn't exist anymore. The the woke DEI, um, gender, the military's lost its way in. We need to make war fighters, not happy people,
Mm-hmm.
and people that are there because they met a certain criteria. Some of the best fighters I ever fought alongside were women. It ain't about male or female. Soldiering is a skill, and it is equally deadly under a male's hands. But when you can't trust somebody that's right and left of you because they haven't earned what you've earned, then yeah, there's the idea of discipline is gone for, I'll call it woke left ideologue uh, policies that don't create warfighters. It creates socially acceptable soldiers that don't know how to fight. I'm sure they could, but
Mm-hmm.
the premise of war is to win. It's
Mm-hmm.
not to it's
Yep.
not to look good or to
Mm-hmm.
feel good.
Yeah.
It's a nasty, dirty business.
Mm-hmm. Yep, sir, I understand. I understand your feeling, and once again, I do apologize. I know, like my apologies does not work, but as a taxpayer and as a Canadian citizen, I know like how you feel it when I feel it. So that's. But this is a huge topic, and I hope like you will make time for me appearing again on the Sami Parvez show with respect to just talk about woke ideology in the military. let's
Yeah.
uh, yeah, let's move on. So we also see like there is a crisis of healthcare, like like we don't have enough doctors or healthcare workers. So does your party have any plan to tackling down the healthcare crisis? We must have enough doctors or physicians for each and every single Ontarian. and we have shortage. We always have shortage, not only in Ontario but across the nation. So do you have any solution for this?
Well, that's a typical question that you get, and this is my typical response. The problem with our healthcare system is it's run by bureaucrats. The Ministry of Health has almost 900,000 employees in it. And 15 years ago, there was 600,000. There was about 100,000 front or administrators or bureaucrats, and there was 500,000 nurses, doctors, PSWs, technicians, bed changers, you know. And in the last 15 years, under the previous Wynne government and under this conservative government, they've doubled the bureaucracy. So now there's 600,000 frontline workers and 600,000 bureaucrats. So that's primarily the problem.
Yep.
And I'll get to the answer on healthcare. If you look at Ontario's election map right now, and you look at the different colors of who won what riding, you'll see that in the GTA,
Yep.
Sudbury, North Bay, and Ottawa, those are the four major centers that have the most amount of ridings, but they also conversely have the most amount of public servants,
Yep.
1.8 million of them in a province of 15 million people. And they have almost 52% of all the ridings of the 124. So there's 58 ridings that are in those major population areas. They are solidly Liberal or NDP. So the people that are showing up to vote in those 52 ridings are the people that have a vested interest in keeping a government that doesn't want change and keeps expanding. So that's the primary problem. That's the first problem. The fix is this. Our policy is the share of your funding of the $78 billion budget is $5,620. There's 14 LHINs. Are you familiar with the LHINs in Ontario?
Nope.
So there's 14 regions of Ontario that have healthcare regions.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So Doug Ford got rid of those. They still exist administratively. So we'll attach your $5,600 to you, to your son, your daughter, your kids, your wife, and you will have the power to direct it to your local LHINs. Right now, it gets less than half of that $5,600. So once we put the funding in the hands of the people, then we do two things after that. Each one of those 14 LHINs, Doug Ford goes, you're going to be the boss, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that, and he appoints all these people to run them. And in the hospital, Doug Ford goes, every hospital, this is who I'm appointing as your CEO, whether they're a qualified doctor or not. We'll fix that. We'll hold elections so that the board will be elected by the people who actually care about healthcare. Third, hospitals. All hospitals will hold elections so that they can get rid of the appointees and put someone in place that actually cares, that's from the community, that is a doctor or a nurse or someone who's very much involved in the health sciences and not a government appointee. So attach the funding to the people, hold general elections in the 14 LHINs to have a civilian people resident board, elections in the hospitals. Then we will take all of the hiring, which is for doctors, for nurses, they decide how many people get hired in each region. Mm-hmm. There's only so many positions. So that's why you have shortages, because the government won't authorize more full-time permanent employees. That will cease to exist as a central planned government. And the board, with all the extra double money that it has, about $2.3 billion per board, will be able to do all their hiring for their doctors, all the hiring for the nurses, all the buy MRI machines, because they have double the money, literally overnight within 1 year. So that's how you do it. You attach the funding to the people, you elect the boards, you elect the hospital CEOs, you hand back all the centralized power of hiring to the local community who knows best what their needs are. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of it is that guys like me, politicians, won't be able to say, hey, I'm going to fix healthcare. Political parties will say, hey, I want to fix healthcare. They won't exist. They won't have any power because they won't own. This is the premise of libertarianism. If we're going to have taxation, then let's have taxation by representation, where you actually matter. Because right now, they're all making promises, and they've been doing it for 40 years. Doug Ford took over a $64 billion healthcare budget. He added $14 billion to it in the last 5 years, and services have gotten 50% better because they own it. They have to get the public servants on board with them, conservatives, liberals, NDP, and Greens. If you don't have that demographic vote, you don't win. Take it away, decentralize it, remove the ability of politicians to be able to say, I'm going to fix it, because they won't own it. They won't even own the power of the money behind it. And that's the way you fix it. Put it in the hands of the people. If you're going to tax me, damn it, I want control of the money.
Wow.
That's how we fix it.
But they don't let it to fix it.
Well, it's called Hegelian politics. Hegelian politics. Government creates a problem and
Yeah.
then offers you a solution for it by taxing you. It's been happening for 40 years and people don't realize it. Climate change wasn't an issue until someone used the word climate change.
Yep.
And then they went, it's going to kill us all. We better
Mm-hmm.
have a tax. They found a solution to create a fear. They created a tax for it. And now people accept carbon taxes.
Mm-hmm. And I need to ask you, like, with your experience, should we expect any solution, or should we expect a government like what you are proposing in the upcoming years? It who should be elected, like by the people, not those bureaucrats who are going to vote to elect these uh corrupt politicians.
No, there's, unless New Blue, and I love the fact that New Blue's there, and the candidate that's running it in my riding, he's just like me. He actually is passionate and cares. I don't know if New Blue would do anything different. Their policy doesn't show anything different. Um, they talk, they're us libertarians and New Blue are the only people that remind people, hey, we got almost a $400 billion debt. What are you doing about that? That we're paying $1.8 billion a month interest payment on.
Yeah.
Hey, how about over here, the taxpayer? How about a little relief? Nobody's talking about spending less. They're all trying to outspend each other. But see, therein lies the problem. You said, if I could get elected, say if I got one, this is also part of the speech in my education that I'm trying to give to people. If I got 100% of the votes in my riding, I'd be the first ever libertarian candidate, right? What power do I have?
You don't have any
None.
power.
Because I only need you, the voter, on election day to actually win the seat. After that, I don't care about you.
Care.
And that is the problem. I'm not loyal to the residents that voted me in. I'm loyal to the party that I belong to,
Mm-hmm.
the ministers and the leaders. And I don't care. You've served your purpose, electorate.
Yep.
You've did your job. And now I can't do anything for you because I am beholden and loyal to the party. We will change that. We will change that. Every MPP will be empowered with all the legislative and regulatory control of the provincial government to be able to enact whatever they want in their riding. So if they have a referendum and they said that we want to build 100 homes in this area, there's 5 major areas in 5 little cities,
Okay.
and say my city, Kempville, wants to build 200 homes, well, they have to go through this 5 layers of bureaucracy in which my local MPP has no say over. Well, if the town here decides that we want to build 200 homes, then you should be able to go to your MPP, who has no power now, who will be empowered to go, big rubber stamp.
Mm-hmm.
I did my job. I'm representing you. I have the authority to do it. That's the biggest problem that we have now. People think that their vote matters, and it doesn't.
Mate.
They are not loyal to you after they're elected. They're loyal to their party. They're loyal to the party whip, and they're loyal to the premier and the ministers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a change that needs to happen. If we're going to empower your vote, because your vote means nothing now. We need to empower your MPP.
Mhm. Yeah. So, what should be done to make sure that every single Ontarians get out and vote on February 27th? We always see, like on election day, no matter it is a provincial, federal, or municipal, the turnout is always low, less than 50%. And I also like see one of the Atlantic Canada election, which happened last in October. I think some MPs or MLAs received like 3,000, 4,000 votes to get elected. It doesn't make any sense. So I need to
Pretty
know.
good, pretty good, pretty good task to make $185,000 a year, right? Get 3,000 votes, and I'll pay you $185,000 a year in Ontario to be an MPP. It's sad. So in the election in 2022, 31% of Ontario voted, of which Doug Ford won a majority with 18%. 31, that means 70 or 69% of the people stayed home.
Mhm,
They have done this. The Liberals, the NDPs, and the Conservatives have done this. They have created voter apathy for the last 40 years to say, why bother voting? Because my vote don't matter. They don't listen to me anyway. Well, guess what? Under a libertarian government with an empowered MPP, if he doesn't, or if she or he doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you will have recall powers. So if you get 70% of the riding to sign off on a signature, you can force that person out and call an election. There will be no more provincial elections under this way that we are going to run Ontario. No more provincial elections. Every 5 years, there'll be an election. And if you're unhappy or your MPP isn't performing and you decide to vote them by, by, by recall legislation, if you decide to vote them out, you immediately have another election. The political party system will no longer exist. The people will be in charge of their MPP and they will do as they're told.
mhm. Yeah, but right now we don't have a recall legislation, right?
Correct. And
Yeah.
none of the parties want to do it. They,
Mm-hmm.
the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals, they're all pro-union parties.
Yeah.
The Conservatives have to be pro-union. They can't announce anything in regards to cuts to government because they will lose that whole voting demographic. You're talking maybe 10 to 12 seats that they could potentially lose if they say we're going to cut health care.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they're all in bed together. They all require these voter demographics of the unions. So nobody's going to change anything because they risk losing power. And that's what it's about to them. It's not about you and me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about retaining power and making favors in regards to the public service sector.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Let's talk on another topic. Cost of living. So before that, so do you support a universal basic income like what
No,
some parties are suggesting? So,
no,
mhm, okay.
no.
So what should be done to tackle down the cost of living?
It's pretty hard to take down the cost of living when you have the federal government imposing the carbon tax. A carbon tax goes from the minute that a farmer fills up his tractor, he pays a carbon tax. That when he collects his grain from the field or fertilizes, he pays another carbon tax and fuel. And then when he dries his grain, he pays a carbon tax. Then when he ships his stuff to the granary, he pays a carbon tax. And then when he takes it from the granary to the manufacturer, he pays a carbon tax. When the manufacturer puts it in, makes it into a product, they pay a carbon tax. When the manufacturer ships it to your local Loblaws or Walmart, they pay a fuel charge carbon tax for it. And when you get to Walmart, what happens is the government introduces minimum wage policies, and Walmart then has to absorb the new price of this product that used to be $1 is now $2. And the government said, oh, now we got to pay people 17.20 an hour. So now I got to add another dollar. And that's the theft via inflation is the problem. We don't have enough time to talk about the federal government's monetary policy and printing money and creating artificially high prices in housing. And that's how the system works to recycle homes and keep the banks happy over a 20-year lifespan.
Mhm.
I don't know how old you are, but in my lifetime, I've seen how the Bank of Canada plays with interest rates and sucks people in like they did in the 2022 or 2019 to 2023, and
Hmm.
then poof, puts the interest rates up there, and
Up,
people
yep.
are struggling for the next 15 years. This is the third time I've seen it in my lifetime, and I'm
Oh.
going to be 62 in April.
Hmm.
That's one thing. But the biggest problem that we have in regards to your original question is that the government is strangling local governance, local councils from being able to build because it owns all the authority for planning and land use. So the government actually adds years, the provincial government adds years to local projects. That's the problem. That adds costs. Secondary to that is conservation authorities. They add between 24 at the lowest, a piece of vacant land in Northern Ontario, to $52,000 of environmental fees on every building project, whether you build yourself or whether a builder does it. Well, those builders, they just pass that on to the poor kids trying to buy a house.
Oh.
So now you have to mortgage upwards of $50,000 over 20 years, which will cost you $110,000. We need to get rid of the regulatory fees that are coming with this. We need to build, and get government out of the way to allow municipalities and smaller areas to make their own decisions on what they want. No more government influence in the sense of the massive amount of regulations. But we have even a better plan if you want to hear it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So the Ontario Libertarians Party plan is we are going to institute what's called land patent grants. Canada was settled by offering free plots of land. Hey, people in Europe, come to Canada. We'll give you 100 acres of land. And all you have to do is occupy it until 15 acres, and it's yours for life. We stopped doing it in 1985 because banking became the owners of land. You got to get a mortgage. We got to suck you into paying for 20 years. We're going to give away 1 to 5 to 10 acre parcels free. It's your land. Doesn't belong to me, doesn't belong to the government. It's the public's land. And there's 63 million acres of it within 1.5 hours of the US border. And it'll come with 3 conditions. You must occupy the land in 2 years. You must have an executable waste collection system. In other words, you have to, Johnny on the spot, a
Yeah.
septic tank. And 3, you cannot sell it for 5 years. How many people do you know would live in a tent or an RV or whatever to stop paying the crazy fees on rent or put a tiny home up on it, right? And by doing that, you're going to get these kids out of the rent cycle because our kids age 18 to 30 have no hope of ever owning a home. When I grew up, I thought I could own a home. But that's what we need to do. We need to give land patent grants because it'll come with about anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 of asset value in which they can use to fund to build the foundation 1 year, framing the house the next year, and in 5 years' time or 6 years' time, those people can be mortgage free and debt free. Give them the land. Not everybody's going to take it, but a lot of people will. That'll clear a lot of people out of the housing market. It'll actually drop the housing market, but more importantly, it will give people instant wealth and access to owning land, which is the primary purpose. For this policy, the Ontario Building Code will no longer apply to private property in this province. If you want to build commercially, if you're a commercial builder, then you must build by the Ontario Building Code. But no longer you want to live in a tent, a yurt, an RV, a tiny home, or a mud brick house heated from seal oil from clubbed seals off the coast of Newfoundland. You can do that because the only way these kids are going to gain wealth, our children, our grandchildren are going to gain wealth, is if they have access to land. That's our policy. That's how we'll fix it.
Hmm.
It's almost $1 trillion after 5 years would be invested by the people that took over this land in construction building.
Wow, that's you have a great plan. So, did you share it to your constituents or wherever libertarian candidates are running? So, how the residents or the voter reacted after hearing your plan?
So the problem we had is we were going to vote on the new platform that I wrote, and there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to it. But they called the election, so we had to go with the platform that we had because caucus, the existing members that ran in the last election, we didn't get a chance to vote before they called the election to have an official platform according to our constitution of the Libertarian Party of Ontario. So we can't officially publish it. The one that's there now is the 2022 plan with a 2025 name on it. And any one of these ideas that I'm talking about all fit within that.
Hmm.
It was lacking specifics. And that's what this rewrite was a platform of specifics and how we were going to deregulate and decentralize Queen's Park's powers to be able to empower your MPP, the person you vote for, that has no power. And that fundamentally is the problem. And that's right across the country. It's same with your MP that you vote on the federal level. What power do they have but to obey and say, I'll talk to somebody higher up? You elect them, but then they have no power. And remember, Sami, what is
Yeah.
democracy?
The democracy, it means it is for the people, by the people, and I think to the people.
So democracy is 100 people in the room, and me and you are 50 and 51. Numbers 50 and 51.
Yep.
And 51 of us, and you're one of the 51, decide that number 50 is going to be executed.
Hmm.
No crime committed. Democracy is mob rule. If 51 people vote in a room to kill the other 49, that's democracy. It's not a bad system. And it's a good system for being fair, but it doesn't apply to our politicians. So if you elect somebody, your vote and your MP federally or MPP provincially should be able to exercise the democratic will of the people by voting for objectives in their riding, and they don't. So our democracy, as far as I'm concerned, it's flawed, but it can be a lot better if it actually represented the people.
Hmm.
That's the fundamental problem that we have, and that's my big education program. We're going to decentralize Queen's Park's power to empower each and every one of your MPs. 124 powerful people working for the people that voted for them.
Hmm. Yeah, you have great plan, great vision. You are optimist. You are passionate for the Ontarians. But what should be done to encourage Ontarians to get out and vote on February 27th? That people like you should be in the Queen's Park.
We are doing all the social media that we can. 2 weeks before the election, we got access back to our X account. We got access to our Instagram account. Um, we have a Telegram channel. We have the www website, and we have a Facebook page, which has pretty much been our primary means of communications.
Hmm.
We don't have millions of dollars. They got the NDPs, Liberals, Greens, and Conservatives got $18 million from the government to run their campaigns. We got zero.
Yeah.
And we have money, but not that kind of money where we can go and buy uh, a, a 2 minute commercial on CTV.
Hmm.
Even if I had $50 million in the bank, they wouldn't take my money. They wouldn't take New Blues money. They wouldn't take the Communist Party of Ontario's money. Do you know why? Because the government owns the media and
Hmm.
pays for the media. And if you do something that's going to jeopardize the funding,
Yep.
that's the problem. That's why all candidates, other than the four mains, across this election, across this province tonight, are being denied access. Only the four main parties are being allowed to speak.
On the
And
media.
that is criminal in my books, but there's no law against it. There's no protection in the Ontario Elections Act. There's no protections in the Federal Election Act to ensure that all candidates' voices are heard and you can't censor candidate. There's not a single law that's being broken by them, the organizers of these events, excluding people. How the hell is this going on? What did I serve for when you're able to censor? And I don't care if you're from the Communist Party of Canada or, you know, the, I don't know,
Leftist.
the Rhino Party and the Snakes and Ladders Party. They should all be allowed a voice to speak, and they censor every one of us that isn't part of the main four.
Yep. Yeah.
How is this happening? It's beyond me. I don't even know. At best, I've had a couple of talks with some lawyers and a human rights complaint based on political affiliation. But what are you going to get out of it? It's not going to change the law, right?
So no, like, but like they these Ontarians, like I'm going to ask you the same question again. Sorry. Like they don't get out and vote. Like always the voter turnout is low. I'm asking what should be done to increase the voting turnout to make a change.
The only thing that you can do right now is buy space in prime time media, which they won't sell us. You can election finance rules are very, very, very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big things that the other parties have is called third party advertising. And there's 34 registered third party advertisers. 19 of them are teachers unions and public sector unions.
Yep.
And they can run $750,000 social media campaigns where we couldn't do that as a provincial party. We can't do that. But these special interest groups do. And they're all funded. Like I said, there's 34 of them, and 21 or 22 of them are public service unions
Mm-hmm.
or very specific, the auto workers, the specific power generation, right? Uh, that's the only thing that we can do. And that takes a lot of money. We have money, but not that kind of money, not the $1 million that, $750,000 that you could spend to buy space on social media, because that's what you have to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark, once again for joining me. So what's your message to Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes residents, and wherever your party candidates are running? Why should they vote for you and your party in this election?
The reason why you should vote Libertarian in this election is because if we don't exercise the change that is necessary, if there's a big swing away from the four parties, that is going to be the only thing that affects the four parties. I'm asking for your vote so that if me and the other three candidates get enough votes, it will force the four main parties to look at why and change their policies. Until we can elect a new government with the interests of Ontario people in mind, that's pretty much the only reason why you should vote for me. Because even if I win with 100% of the vote, I still have no power. We need a majority Libertarian government, and I don't have the candidates. New Blue is close. We're not like the rest of them. We literally, the independent parties, actually work together. They don't work together. They don't care about working together. They don't want to work together. They only want power. We want what's right. Libertarians want what's right. We want to be able to serve the people so that the people are more powerful than the politicians. And
Mhm.
if you're going to vote, I just simply ask you to consider me, Libertarian, or one of the other parties to send a message if you're unhappy. And if you feel you have no choice but to vote for the lesser of four evils, pick us and vote for something for positive.
Okay, thank you. So I always ask this question to any political candidate appear on the Sami Parvez show. Is like I did not send requests to four major party, Liberal, Green, or Conservative, or NDP, because they denied my request. But I need to ask you, would you commit that if you get elected, will you be willing to appear again on the Sami Parvez show or giving interviews to independent journalists like myself?
It will be, well, first of all, if we can form a majority government, there will be no funding giving to any media outlet. Um, and I will do my best to ensure that I never speak to the mainstream media and offer them the same respect that they give us, other candidates. I will always do other interviews other than mainstream media because it's the only truth being told in Canada. It is truly people talking about real problems, not pre-programmed responses. Go to an election debate and all you hear is pre-programmed responses. I'm going to do $3.2 billion on this, and we're going to hire X amount of people. How are you doing today? Are you feeling like you're overtaxed, Ontario? No, I won't give interviews with. Uh, the only real truth out there is guys like you, media entities like you,
Thank
and the other shows that I've been on. It just is like I get rid of all the mainstream media. They're dead.
you.
Uh,
Yep.
the Joe Rogan
Mhm.
way of conducting media
Yep.
is the way that you guys have seen,
Hmm.
and you're bringing truth and conversation.
Yep.
Conversation.
Yep. We need
You
more
can
of
see
that.
that you're a wonderfully kind man. You can see that I'm passionate about, you know nothing about me, but this is what we know about each other. You
Yes.
can see in your eyes you're a kind man and you care. And you
Mm.
can see in my eyes that I'm passionate about that.
Yep.
That's what you get to see. You don't get that in pre-programmed responses.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Okay, once again, Mark, thank you so much for joining me on the Sami Parvez show. It was a great pleasure to have you here, and you share lots of ideas and your campaign message and your platform. And wishing you very best on this election campaign, and looking forward to seeing you as the next MPP, and also your party candidates, to look forward to see a change in the Queen's Park.
I really hope so. I cannot thank you enough for having me on because we need more of this, more of people talking to people.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much, Sammy.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you, and you please take a good care of yourself and enjoy your rest of evening.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.